This is the Dyson V11 vacuum cleaner. It is the latest, best cordless vacuum cleaner from Dyson. All my friends rave about it. So last year for Christmas, I bought this as a present for my wife. But when she got the present, my wife could not have been any more unimpressed with my present. To this day, she has not said anything good about this vacuum cleaner. To this day, she still keeps using our old vacuum cleaner. Last year was a very sad Christmas. There wasn't much joy last year. And 2020 has also been a joyless year. We've had the bushfires, we've had the floods, and we've had the coronavirus. So our question for Christmas this year is this: how can we find joy in a joyless year? Well, g'day, my name is Sam Chan. I'm with City Bible Forum, and I'm going to try to answer this question in the form of a 10-15 minute talk, and I'm going to try to answer how we can find joy in a joyless year, especially around Christmas time. How can Christmas give us the joy that we're looking for? Well, here I've got 3 things to say. Number 1, 2020 was a year of unmatched expectations. I love the Australian Wallabies. I'm a big fan of rugby. But for the last 20 years, I have not watched the Australian Wallabies play. These days, I record their game, I'll wait to find out the result, and then I simply delete the game because it's too sad to watch them play. And that's because there's this thing called the happiness algorithm. The happiness algorithm says this: happiness equals reality minus expectations. And that means if reality exceeds expectations, we're going to be happy. But if reality doesn't match expectations, well, we're going to be very sad. And Christmas, more than any other day of the year, is the day of unmatched expectations. Because what are our expectations for Christmas? Well, usually we expect there's going to be a tree and it's going to be beautiful. We're going to open our presents together around the tree. There'll be a family dinner, and there'll be an Instagram photo that we can upload, brag, and share. But what usually happens at Christmas? Well, the reality is usually this: the tree was a little bit sad. One kid opened their presents when they shouldn't have. Another kid had a meltdown, the food got burnt, the conversation was boring, and people refused to perform for the photo. Our reality never quite matches our expectations, and that's okay. Because on the original Christmas, it was also a day of unmatched expectations. And we all know the story of the original Christmas. The original Christmas was this: Jesus, the Son of God, became one of us, and he was born as a baby to Joseph and Mary. But he was born in a manger, and it was pretty dirty. There would have been disease, and the people who showed up were these blue-collar, working-class shepherds. It was a day of unmatched expectations. Because think about it. What are our expectations of that original Christmas? Well, here I blame the carols, because the carols set the expectations pretty high. Take this one for example: Silent Night. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin, mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace. And just in case we didn't get it, it doubles our expectations because it repeats it: sleep in heavenly peace. Also, away in a manger, the cattle are lowing, the poor baby wakes, but little Lord Jesus, no crying he makes. They're our expectations, but what do you think the original Christmas was really like? I think Jesus was crying all night. He would not settle. He would have had vomiting and diarrhea from all the dirt and disease around him. Mary, she would have been exhausted. She would have been stressed. She could not get the feeding right. Joseph would have been overwhelmed, grumpy, and feeling a little bit left out. And so if this Christmas is the day of unmatched expectations, if 2020 has been the year of unmatched expectations, that's okay, because the original Christmas was also a day of unmatched expectations. Number two, 2020 was a year where we had to recalibrate. Lately, I've been noticing that Sydney drivers have been getting slower and slower. In a 60 zone, they do 50. In an 80 zone, they do 70. In a 100 kilometre zone, they do 90. What is going on? But that's when I realised, hang on, maybe the problem is me. Because I drive a Jeep, and a few years ago, I put in those big tyres, but I forgot to recalibrate the speedo. So I'm actually going faster than what the speedo says. When the speedo says 60, I'm doing 70. When the speedo says 80, I'm doing 90. When the speedo says 100, I'm doing 110. The problem wasn't the other drivers. The problem was me. I had to recalibrate and slow down. And 2020 was the year that we had to recalibrate and slow down, because we were forced into an isolation lockdown. Suddenly we couldn't go anywhere. Suddenly our business trips got cancelled. Our holiday plans got cancelled. I remember when petrol went down to 80 cents a litre, but none of us could buy the petrol because we weren't going anywhere. Suddenly we had to recalibrate and slow down. And that's when people got into making sourdough, because it takes time to make sourdough. People got back into exercising because we had to bring things back down to their basics. And people took their time to do slow things like jigsaw puzzles. We also took the time to try to declutter. We tried to organise a council cleanup, but we could not book a council cleanup because they were all booked out. Everyone else was doing the same. 2020 was the year where we had to declutter, bring things back down to their basics, and take stock of our lives. And the original Christmas was also a day of recalibrating and decluttering. Because think about it, in that original Christmas, suddenly there were no baby showers, there were no relatives or friends coming, and there was no Instagram photo of the baby. Instead, it was just Joseph, Mary, the baby, a manger, and a few shepherds to visit. Suddenly they could keep it simple, keep it real, declutter, and then just take stock of what it was all really about. So what is it all really about? Well, this brings me to number 3. 2020 exposed the quality of our relationships. 2020 was the year where we all learned how to do Zoom. But at the start, we were all newbies on Zoom, so we would forget to mute when we should have been on mute, and we would forget to unmute when it was our turn to talk. So people would do the "you're on mute" thing at us. But by the end, we were all pros on Zoom. We knew how to rock on up in our pajama shorts because no one could tell. We knew how to watch YouTube on our phones because no one could tell. And we knew how to do the whole green screen thing, so we could have a fake background. We learned how to fake it on Zoom. But during the isolation period, it showed we could not fake the quality of our relationships, because suddenly we were in each other's faces 24 hours a day. And suddenly there was no mute button, there was no green screen, there was no faking it. And that meant for some of us who had great relationships already, isolation was a great time of hanging out with our roommates, with our buddies, and with our family. The lockdown period heightened whatever connectedness and peace and shalom that we enjoyed already in our relationships. But for many of us, isolation, lockdown exposed the dysfunctionality, the lack of quality in our relationships. The lockdown period heightened our sense of loneliness. It exposed the friction points in our family. and it heightened the sense of stress, disorder, and chaos that was already there. If anything, isolation, lockdown, it exposed how we're lacking something in our relationships, that we do need somebody to love and somebody to love us. And that's what the original Christmas was all about. It was Jesus Christ, the Son of God, becoming one of us so he could share his life with us. So he could be the ultimate somebody in our life, the ultimate somebody to love us, and the ultimate somebody that we too can love. And these are my 3 favorite verses about Christmas that sum up what Christmas is all about. Jesus Christ came as a baby. Why? So he could save his people from their sins. Jesus Christ came as a baby. Why? So he could bring peace on earth between us and God. Jesus Christ came as a baby. Why? So that his name could be Emmanuel, God with us. God sharing his life with us. So he could be the ultimate somebody in our life. See, without Jesus, we are lonely for God. Without Jesus, we're hungry for God. Without Jesus, we're thirsty for God. Without Jesus, we have no peace. But with Jesus, God comes into our life and God becomes that ultimate somebody that we need in our life. Somebody to love us and somebody that we can love. So do you remember our original question today? It was this: how can we find joy in a joyless year? Well, Christmas answers this by saying 3 things. Number 1, yes, 2020 has been a year of unmatched expectations, but that's the whole point of Christmas. Number 2, 2020 has been the chance for us to recalibrate and take stock of our lives. Why? So number 3, 2020 has been the year where we can re-examine the quality of our relationships and especially ask, do I have that ultimate somebody to live for and the ultimate somebody who lives for me? You know, 2020 has been the year that has closed many doors for us, but it's actually also opened more doors. And that's the whole story of Christmas. On Christmas Day, Jesus shuts the door to our sin, guilt, shame, brokenness, and regret. And then he opens the door to having God in our life. God being the ultimate somebody, the ultimate relationship. He opens the door to peace with God. See, that's what life is all about, having somebody to live for and somebody who lives for us. You know, 2020, they've done surveys, has been the year that people have had a heightened sense of God, spirituality, and prayer, because it's been the year that we've had to recalibrate, take stock of what's important, and suddenly realize, you know what, I do need peace with God. I do need the ultimate somebody in my life. This is one of my favorite TED Talks, and it's actually the most watched TED Talk of all time. Robert Waldinger quotes this Harvard study in his talk, What Makes a Good Life. He quotes a Harvard study where over a period of 70 years, they traced the lives of, I think it was 700 men. And they found out, and they asked the question, well, what makes a good life? And in the end, they found out it doesn't come down to, it doesn't matter whether you've been a CEO or not. It doesn't matter whether you have $1 million or not. It doesn't matter whether you've paid off your house or not. The highest correlation with happiness is this: the quality of our relationships. Is there somebody in my life that I can share this life with? Is there somebody who loves me? And is there somebody that I love? And Christmas Day, more than any other day of the year, where is the day where God comes, the Son of God becomes one of us, so God can share his life with us. So Christmas Day, more than any other day, and 2020, more than any other year, is a day where we should open the door to Jesus.